on your next opponent?
Rutgers. Pretty good. Athletic, well coached, can really score it. They keep things pretty simple offensively and defensively, which is what makes them be able to play fairly fast, not necessarily tempo-wise, but just, they play pretty fast. They play pretty confident. They're a good basketball team that can put up points really, really quickly. So we'll have our hands full.
How you feeling about, the bounce back? I know you talked about that a little bit after the game against Indiana, but I imagine you're not surprised that you guys bounced back after 3 losses and got the win home.
Yeah. I don't think I was ever real worried just because of how they approach practice. I think you still have to throw a few curveballs at them to make sure that they're fully focused on the next opponent, and understanding that because sometimes you can, you get close to Purdue, you get close to Illinois, you can kind of fall in love with close and think that you're getting closer, and there's no real place that you're supposed to arrive. It's just continuing to get better and better and better, and so whether you get close to Purdue or Illinois is irrelevant. You still are trying to get better. It's not exciting. It's like, hey, just come have a great day of practice, and then get ready for Indiana. And then now come today. Yesterday we had to, be elite at not resting, but getting a sweat and trying to get some of that soreness out. And then today is we got to get after it and try to get better today. And then obviously, prepare for Rutgers as well.
You ask a lot from Tavon, doing a lot of different things, guarding different types of players and everything. What's been the key to his development?
Yeah, I think he has an ability to go to another level of effort, of intensity that others can't get to. I think that the key to his development, though, is he listens, and then he tries to apply some of the things that we're telling him to do. And when he trusts that process, which he's done over the years, then you kind of see the result of that performance. And part of it was he was the right place, right time, and he just does his job the way he's supposed to do his job. There's nothing that he needs to do more or less. Just needs to do his job, and he's been doing that, and you kind of see the results of what's happening there. He's not doing anything different than he did early in the season. He's just doing it a little bit better and a little bit harder.
What do you recall Tate Sage's recruiting process, like how he got on your radar? What do you recall about that process?
I was sitting at a game in Kansas City, and it was, I don't know what tournament it was, and it was at the high school deal where they played with their high school team. And I sit next to a guy, a coach in the MIAA, Jeff Boshy's his name. He played at Kansas, and he's sitting at a game. It was just me and him, and I was kind of casually watching the game, and I'm like, why is he at this game? And I didn't necessarily, wasn't like trying to pick up on why. I was just talking to him because I like him. And I'm watching, and I'm like, man, these kids are good. It's 2 twins, it's Ethan and Tate. And I'm like, man, are they good enough for Drake? And I'm just kind of watching them, and I look at their offers. They don't have any offers hardly, and some D2 offers. And man, I don't know. So then we went and watched them again the next game, and both of them, Tate and Ethan, they were good. They were good enough for our level. But they played at a smaller school and played in an AAU program that not many knew about, and so ended up offering them and just recruited him throughout the summer, and he wanted to. We recruited both. We recruited Ethan and Tate, and wanted him to come to Drake. We were fortunate enough to get Tate.
What was it about when you made the transition to Iowa that you were like, okay, we want Tate to come along?
Yeah, I thought that he was one that would really develop in a couple years, and we told him that, we just thought that he was that kind of 6'7", 2-guard, bouncy, could guard multiple positions. It's done nothing but win. And those are the kind of kids that you need to be successful here, because we want to do it. We'll take transfers throughout, and we want transfers, but primarily our base needs to be high school kids and kind of recruit from within. And so, it's like, yeah, I think he'd be good enough for us eventually. And then kind of throughout the summer, he just kept getting better and better and better. And then one of the scrimmages, I believe he played really well, and I can't remember which one. And we're like, man, he's playing well. And so then we ended up, not redshirting him and ended up playing great for us.
Why do you think he went under recruited?
Yeah, I think the more I'm around this level, you have to get so far ahead in the recruiting process. So you have to get out. You can't really talk to them unless they contact you. But like 28, so you got 27, 2027 kids committing right now. Probably some 2028s, and it's like, man, you got to get so far ahead that kids get labels as to how good they are, and so the ones that are slower developing don't get recruited because they just fall off the radar because everybody's focus and attention is somewhere else. And so then we were lucky enough to sit there, and at Drake you recruit a little bit different. You just don't recruit the top 50 kids in the country. And so you have to find those essentially diamonds in the rough, as they would say, who essentially are good enough. But you just pass on them because they're not on that radar when they're, freshmen in high school. And so I think that's probably part of it. I think the other part is even I didn't realize how much of a guard he was. I thought he was more of like what I call a hybrid, which would be like a kind of 3-4, can bounce between positions, big and guards. But he's more of a guard. He's more of a 2 guard. Can honestly swing more to a 1 than he can a 4, to be honest. And so that's another thing we probably didn't realize when we recruited him.
Is that like ball handling, vision?
Yeah, ball handling, passing, just your spacing, how you space naturally, just the natural kind of feel for those guards.
How often do you just kind of randomly find a guy like that? Because it seems like maybe Tate, you weren't really watching him. I went to that game to watch him, but you found him.
Yeah, those are usually your better players because you kind of go in and you're just like, I kind of like that kid, and your eye just moves to him, and because he fits and he can play and all those things. Obviously Bennett, all the kids that I've had, Trevor Hudgens, a guard that I had before. I saw him the last tournament of the summer. I remember seeing him and like, man, this kid's pretty good. While he was on the second team of Mocan. Well, Mocan's first team had a guy by the name of Trey Young on it. Yeah. And so we ended up getting him. So yeah, that's probably some of your better players are those kind of kids.
To be completely honest, Rutgers doesn't have the type of resume that the last 5 teams you played since the calendar turned over. How do you make sure there's not, guys aren't overlooking?
Yeah, I watched the Maryland game the other day. It was Maryland and who did they play? The game they had Penn State.
Penn State. And
they were both 0-6. And an 0-6 Big Ten team's a lot different than an 0-6 other league team. Those teams are pretty good. And you're just like, whoa, those are guys that haven't won in the league, and those guys are pretty good. Penn State had a couple teams beat at home this year. So I think our guys understand that this is a Big Ten team. They're very well coached. They've got a lot of talent, and we need to make sure that we bring our best effort to be able to give ourselves a chance.
I know you said you don't pay attention really to the outside noise. Bennett was getting a little bit of heat too because he's supposed to be this honorable mention All-American and he didn't have a great 3-game stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Is he kind of like you? What do you perceive? Because he just came back and had another awesome game, and but what do you perceive there in terms of him and outside noise?
Yeah, good question. I didn't see any of that stuff. If I would have, I see now. If I see some of that stuff, it's like about a player, then I get like mother bear. I get real bad. But that's why I don't look at it, because I don't care if people say stuff about me. I can make fun of myself all day long. But I would guess he's probably more along the lines of me, but he's also probably a 22-year-old, 23-year-old version of me. I don't know what he is, 22 probably. version of that. So regardless of how I can manage that stuff, it's probably more difficult for a guy that works with a level of humility to manage and navigate those kind of things as well. Because there's probably more noise at this level than people realize, whether it's from, now you have agents involved, you have media, you have family and friends that think you should be doing a certain thing. And you try to play to that. And I don't think he necessarily does, but there's always things in the back of your mind that make it so that it's like, well, why wouldn't I just do what I've done this whole year? Why wouldn't I just listen to the same people that I've listened to my entire life? Let's just listen to those people and do the same things that I've done my entire life. But inevitably, you accidentally start to think, I don't want to lose something that you feel like you've gained necessarily, because a lot of these people at this level, as you get to this level, it becomes more and more difficult. And then you have a little success at this level, and I'm not just talking about him, I'm just talking about in general. You have a little success at this level and you think that you've gained something that you can actually lose, when in reality you really haven't gained anything, because it's really what you do today that matters, right? And so then they put this undue pressure to not fail or to not lose something, instead of continuing to try to gain and earn and get something, if that makes sense. Because whether or not, like, let's just use Bennett specifically, whether or not he's good enough for the NBA is not his control. He has no control over that whatsoever. Just like we have no control over whether we win or lose a game. You do have control as how hard you compete and how hard you attack those things. And so when we talk about process focus, that's what it is. You just don't control some of those things that you think you do, that creates the level of anxiety that hurts your performance, and then you've got problems. So long answer, I think that he does a much better job. My guess is his social media is off. I think most of our guys is off. I think your hardest time is when you win a couple games in a row. You may turn it on to feel some of that sense of outside love that isn't really love in reality anyway. And so that's probably the hardest times to manage that.
The Big Ten Network did a feature on Bennett, and he talked about, a letter that you had handwritten him during the recruiting process. Is handwriting letters, is that something that you do like pretty routinely to guys? Was that a one-off? And I guess can you kind of just walk through that?
Yeah, no, it's not something that I do routinely.
Okay.
I do like handwritten letters. They're a little bit better. Not necessarily always in the recruiting process. Probably done it, 20 times in my career, to be honest. I haven't done it a ton. Sometimes it's just good. The handwritten notes are just, I don't know, I'm old school in regards to that. A text is easy, but it takes time to actually write a note. I think specific to that situation, we had recruited him a whole year, and there was just something that wouldn't get him over the hump. And I think sometimes when you're trying to, because I was trying to go to Division I when I came out of high school, and I think sometimes when you're trying to go to Division I, you sometimes can forget what you're actually going to college for, and it's not to be Division I. What it's for is those relationships and your ability to grow through the game of basketball, your ability to become a better man, better husband, better father, all those things through a game, and then to bring joy to people's lives because they see you play and they see how you act and stuff like that. And so you just needed to sometimes write that down, like, hey, this is why you're special. It's not because you can play the game of basketball. It's because you can change people's lives, because of when they see you, they're like, this dude's humble. He works with, unselfishness, but yet he's a fierce competitor and he's chasing his dreams and his goals and stuff like that. I can do that too. And I think that's probably the bigger thing that he needed to realize through the recruiting process. The Division I didn't matter. The right spot and the right people mattered more than anything else.
Could you tell when he was in high school that he had the potential to play at this level?
I thought when we recruited him, he was a mid-major player. That's what I thought. And so I actually went and watched his high school when we got this job, because I'm like, would I have recruited Bennett to this level? It was close. It'd have been close. Yeah, it'd have been for sure mid-major. I definitely would have recruited him at Drake, 100%. Just watching his high school film. Once we got him, then I thought he was a high major kid, Yeah, once I coached him for a while, I was like, yeah, he's probably high major. But, you know, if you would have saw his first scrimmage, you would have been like, ooh. His first, like, big physical game, you'd be like, maybe not. But kids progress differently, and so. But that's the nice part about him going Division II, is able to go to there and then play in a scrimmage and, you know, be awful in the scrimmage. And I remember him coming down and being like, man, I got humbled there. And then we went scrimmage to Division I after that. He was unbelievable. I think he had like 20 points, dunked on somebody, won by like 30 or 35 or something like that. And he was much better in that one. So he's a good player.
With how rare it is to have a player really stick through the process of going through multiple changes with coaches, following coaches as long as he has, what does it mean for him to stick by the developmental side that you've been working with Bennett for so long now?
Yeah, he's picked people, and he's picked the right, not necessarily just me, but like the whole staff, the whole players. He's always picked people, and it's worked out for him very, very well. And he's made a lot of right decisions by picking those people. Not necessarily just me, but my staff, his teammates, that sort of thing. And so he's always done that. And you know, as long as he continues to do that, he's gonna make the right moves. And sometimes there's gonna be some adversity, which, you know, you'll see probably throughout the year still. And then sometimes it's just like, oh, well, that made sense, and he kind of sticks with that faith of he's picked the right people.
When you were recruiting kids that you viewed to be like mid-major at the D2 level, like how did that go? Like for Bennett in particular, just trying to keep that quiet, so maybe like the UNIs or UMKCs wouldn't get it, you know, hear about him or want to go see him.
We wouldn't let kids post their offers, or they wouldn't get the offer. So if they posted the offer is off the table. And so no one would know, because everybody would track our recruiting. And so I think they probably did at Drake as well, a little bit. And so just because we had a niche for finding those kind of kids, so then you push, and a lot of coaches probably don't work real hard on the recruiting trail. And so then it's, you know, you offer them, and then 10 people offer them the next day. Like, all right. And so we just didn't let them post their offers. And then, you know, part of, though, I will say this, it's a little easier to find the diamonds in the rough at that level because, and even at the probably low and mid-major levels, because like if they're not good enough, like if they're not a mid-major player, they're still a D2 player. You know, so it's like, even if they're not that mid, like they're still that. And so you're still fine, and they can still develop, and you can still win games with them. If you miss here and you get a D2 player that you thought was a high major player, you're gonna have some problems, right? Like you're gonna have some problems. You're not gonna win a lot of games. And so to actually trust that evaluation is a little bit more difficult at this level, because you miss and you're not gonna win, and there's gonna be some problems.
Have you had to do some quick learning?
Like the evaluation process?
Yeah, like,
a little bit. I think just the season has helped a lot. Just seeing other teams, seeing what wins, because it's still, you know, I still haven't played in the Big Ten. Like I mean, I'm a year and a half from being in Maryville, Missouri, at Northwest Missouri State. You know, going to a game at Washburn and Topeka, and those were hard games. I'll tell you that much right now. But it's just a little bit different. You know, I think, again, like I've said before, I do think the coaching at Division II was so good. It was good. Like, yeah, the X's and O's coaching, some of those coaches, man, the guys that I came in under, they kicked my butt a lot. And so I learned a lot from X's and O's perspective, playing or coaching at that level.
All right, thanks, Coach.